one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I'll ask our interim secretary to read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that there will be a public hearing on Tuesday, October 12th, 2021, at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall to consider the following. Number 1, application 21-40P, South Windsor Stone and Landscape Supply, request to expand the special exception granted to Article 4, Table 4.1.1a for a landscape material sales and storage business to include a topsoil screening operation located at 287 Strong Road, to include a portion of the property at 275 Strong Road, and site plan modification for the combined properties. This is industrial zone. This was continued from September 28th, 21, and at the request of the applicant will be postponed to our next meeting. Number 2, application 21-36P, 25 Talbot Lane site plan. Request by UW Vintage Lane 2, LLC, for site plan approval for a 359,640 square foot distribution facility on 30.37 acres of property on property located at 5,25 Talbot Lane, 475 and 551 Governor's Highway, industrial zone. To view this meeting, please tune into channel 16 if your provider is Cox Cable, or you can go to gmedia.swagat.com/live. Copies of the application are in file in the office of the town clerk and or the planning department and online at www.southwindsor-ct.gov/planning-department/pages/planning and zoning commission-applications. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard, and written comments by the public will be received by mail or email. Persons who may require an accommodation can contact staff Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., or at 860-644-2511, extension 329. Bart Passaconis, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Dexter. At this time, we do have a commissioner or two missing tonight, so I'm going to see Commissioner Cavagnaro for Commissioner Bonzani. Okay, our order of business tonight will be to first hear from the applicants, then we will hear from the town staff, then we will hear from members from the public, first those in favor and then those against or having questions or comments. If anyone has a cell phone, if they could please put it on vibrate, we would appreciate that. And just to reiterate, our first application is postponed until our next meeting. Our second application, we will be keeping the public hearing open for another meeting. This meeting, we're looking to hear the applicant's presentation. We'll hear from town staff, and then if we have additional time, we'll hear from members of the public. But we are going to stop that public hearing at 9 o'clock or sooner, depending on how well we do, so we can move into other items of business. So at this time, I will call the first, or this, the application 21-36P, 25 Talbot Lane site plan.
Here we go. Make sure you speak right. Yeah. Mask on? You'd like me to retain the mask on?
Are we still? Yes,
Okay.
Please, thank you.
And I've got it aimed right at my mouth, so hopefully you can hear me. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, if you could,
Oh,
I think
put it
raise
up
the
on-
microphone up higher, that'd be great,
How
Peter.
about like this?
Yeah.
Better? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Passaconis, members of the commission, I see a few are absent tonight, but thank you very much for attending, those who are able to, and look forward to meeting with the others in a future hearing as this unfolds at another date. I am Peter DeMalley, President of Design Professionals Incorporated, and on behalf of the applicant, which is UW Vintage Lane 2 LLC. And we will be, for your edification, we will be presenting our exhibits behind you on the big screen during our entire presentation. So just to let you know, we're not going to be using the hard boards. So we're requesting site plan application approval for a 359,640 square foot industrial building distribution center in the industrial zone, and it has addresses, 4 addresses at 5 and 25 Talbot Lane and 475 and 551 Governor's Highway. In the balance of my presentation, I will refer to this as a 360,000 square foot building, just to simplify it. I'll round it off. And also because we're consolidating the 4 vacant parcels into a single 30.37 acre tract, I'll be calling this site 25 Talbot Lane, which very well may end up being its future address. Of note, our client has already acquired the subject property. Our consulting team for tonight's hearing includes George Fellner of Fellner Architects. They're out of East Haddam. He's right here in the front row, closest to me. And he'll, of course, be reviewing the architectural aspects of the plan. Benjamin Wheeler, who right behind me, okay. He is our design professional, as Director of Operations and Director of Landscape Architecture, and he'll be introducing in further detail site design, such as engineering, landscape architecture, and exterior lighting systems, etc. John Plant of Langen, over there to my left. He is a traffic engineer, and he'll give his analysis, a summary of that. And also Attorney Jim Connor of Updike, Kelly, and Spellacy in Hartford is on board for legal direction. As we've been asked to do a shortened version, it seems like it just got doubled, the time frame, but we are preparing a shortened version of our presentation for such a large development as this, and brevity is the word, so we're shooting for 1 hour and to 1.25 hours is the max, which we've been asked to do. And our design team is not present this evening at the continued hearing, which we expect will probably be in 2 weeks' time at your 4th Tuesday in the month. We'll be joined by others, including Daniel Jameson, who is the lead civil engineer and project manager from DPI, and also Dr. Donald Poland of Goldman & York, who has prepared a detailed municipal, fiscal, and economic impact report for the roughly $35 million project that's before us tonight. However, during my presentation tonight, I'll be summarizing some of Dr. Poland's findings from his analysis. The site location, as you can see from this large exhibit that we have here, aerial exhibit superimposed in the middle, is our original site layout. Okay. Yes, okay, it is. We have another one similar to that for future discussion. So the site location is the southeast corner of Governor's Highway and Talbot Lane. The Talbot Lane being the street that serves Carla's Pasta, which is at the back end of that development we were involved with. It's also, the site is easterly of Talbot Lane, southerly of Governor's Highway, westerly of Cody Circle, Baker Lane, and northerly of Edgewood Drive. Area land uses, industrial uses to the west of us in the industrial zone, goes for quite a distance, all the way beyond Route 5. To the north is commercial storefront services building that Ben is indicating with the cursor, and other I-zone land around it, vacant land. To the northeast is the A20 zoned land, and across from our northeast corner of our site, where we're not developing the immediate northeast corner, are 3 single-family residences. Again, those are in the A20 zone. To the east of our development is the A20 zone continuing. That includes Temple Beth Hillel, House of Worship. We're involved with that as well. 2 lots on Cody Circle as part of the Belden Estates, larger Belden Estates subdivision. And off our southeast corner is Town Open Space as part of that subdivision. To the south is single-family house lots, roughly 8 of those. In the A20 zone, only 1 of those partially, the 7 are fully, abutting us. In the A20 zone on Edgewood Drive, and at the northwest corner of Edgewood neighborhood is an additional town open space adjacent to Carla's Pasta and off our southwest corner. I want to just touch on the plan of conservation and development. For many, many decades, in fact, prior to my arrival in the town in 1979, this town has decided and essentially reserved this site for industrial development. And that reservation has been implemented, it's a guide, of course, implemented through zoning by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Plans of conservation and development, of course, are adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission after an exhaustive process. It's updated periodically, and it's with input from multiple, with the public and also from multiple boards, commissions, and the town council during that lengthy process. Under zoning, the town's zoning map, if we could have that up, thank you. The town's official zoning map shows all 4 of our parcels in the I zone. It's small. Maybe we can go right in there. We abut the A20 residential zone, as I just described, primarily to the east and south, a little bit to the northeast of us. As can be seen on the zoning map exhibit, our tract is not only I-zoned land, industrial zone land parcel that abuts, it's not the only industrially zoned parcel that abuts residentially zoned land. There are many examples of that. For example, if you know off Strong Road, Ident Road goes off south side of that. Many house lots abut industrial development. Colony Road, the Hilton Drive neighborhood, Hilton Drive, Edgewood Drive, this neighborhood to the south of us. Down to I-84 where Ticket Network used to be Gerber Scientific. So many, many areas throughout the community that we have to deal with the interface of residential zoning and industrial zoning. Indeed, some of you may remember this, but at one point I remember the Planning and Zoning Commission even doubled the size of buffers from 25 feet to 50 feet in industrial areas. And in fact, that's on both sides of the zone. So under your regulations, 50-foot buffer on the residential side of the zone, supposed to be planted, and then on the industrial side, another 50-foot buffer that meets your standards for screening. Our clients and the design team have gone to great measure to reduce impacts beyond the minimum zoning thresholds. I'll be first describing our initial submission in July, which was presented to you even in fully engineered form. And then I'll introduce a revised plan which appreciably reduces any impacts on the abutting neighborhood. And we're delayed to be able to present that. But the first plan, we can go to that. First plan, going to the overall aerial, we arrived at a sensitive design, but we'll skip right to the major color exhibit. We had a roughly 360,000 square foot building, 40 feet in height per zoning. Dimensions about 810 feet north-south axis, 444 feet east-west axis, with about 12,000 square feet of office space evenly divided between the southeast corner and the southwest corners, with the balance being warehouse space. Truck areas were concentrated away from the majority of residences in the northerly half, with 27 loading docks on each side. That was 54 total, and 118 trailer spaces. 74 in the northwest corner and 44 off the northeast corner of the site. We had 269 parking spaces on the southerly end of the development, nearest the 2 entrances, southwest corner, southeast corner, to the office spaces. And we had, of those 269 spaces, we didn't quite meet the zoning requirements, but this commission can waive it. We had 64 spaces in reserve in the northwest corner in the trailer/truck parking area. All trucks were to access the site to and from Route 5 via Talbot Lane away from the neighborhood. All cars were also to access via Talbot Lane with this plan. Trucks, as you entered the site on the entrance driveway near the cul-de-sac on the east side of Talbot Lane, cars would go to the right, and they would, or to the south, and trucks would go to the left or to the north. There was an emergency vehicle access drive, basically just off the northeast corner of our site, and that was only for emergency vehicles and just plowing, that type of thing. We were at 27.2% building coverage, which is about half of what's allowed. You can have a building twice the size, technically, within zoning. And also, we're at 57.5% impervious coverage, which is allowed up to 65%, so I think we're at 88% at that time of the allowed impervious coverage, which is a footprint of all pavement surfaces, sidewalks, parking lots, drives in the building. There was no outdoor industrial yard, as you find in many industrial areas. We're not proposing that. The building property line setbacks for this were just shy of 100 feet, and I think it's 96.9 feet to Governor's Highway. That's to our property line or to the right-of-way, southerly right-of-way of Governor's Highway. 340 feet toward Talbot Lane, 215 feet toward Edgewood, and 425 feet to the east toward Cody. And that was from our building again to the property line. Distances from loading docks to homes in this plan, 770 feet to Edgewood Drive from our closest loading dock. And then we had 530 feet to Cody Circle and 260 feet to Governor's Highway. So you can see we had the two areas of loading docks on the left side, upper left and upper right. So those distances you can see were substantial all around. We were sensitive to the neighborhood when we designed this particular scheme, and we think it was extremely sensitive from that perspective. That's where the most outdoor activity is. Our buffering far exceeded the 50 feet minimum. We have not only 50 feet of existing trees, the forest there, is to remain intact all the way along the southerly and easterly lines, as Mr. Wheeler's cursor is indicating. So we have the 50 feet, as I said, of the existing forest along the property line, and then inside that, we have 40 feet of an area planted with evergreen trees, intensely planted with evergreen trees on top of a 6-foot-high earthen berm. That's on the interior. So effectively of a total of 90 feet of berm, of buffer area that's existing mature forest along the property lines, common property lines with the residences, and then inside that, another 40-foot buffer planted with an earthen berm. That's substantial, and again, we only need 50 to conform to zoning. There's a roughly 2-acre water quality basin between the buffers and the building. As you can see off the southern side, it's thinner on the southerly side and is wider off the southeast corner of the building. And we had proposed with this about 1/3 of an acre of wetlands impacts. Those are 2 old agricultural water courses for dewatering the old fields that used to be here before it was all woodland. And we had comparable wetlands mitigation areas actually over to the west of the center of the building, over near the cul-de-sac, southerly cul-de-sac for Talbot Lane. I'd like to next go to a second plan we have. We can just go to, why don't we just move up to the overall color exhibit, Ben, please? Okay, with this, we received a comment, and Michelle, I'm just going to read that if I may. Okay, we received a comment from Michelle, and in response to that comment, received a week ago today, on October 5th, and it read, after further review of the proposed site plan and the amount of public interest in the location of this facility as it relates to its proximity to the residential area, it is recommended that all the loading docks be placed on the westerly side of the building. I would not recommend seeking a waiver to section 6.4.8.4, which is a provision where you can ask the commission for a waiver if any loading dock happens to be facing toward a residential area, even if it's set back considerably. So we took that under advisement, discussed it with our clients, discussed it in the design team, with the design team, the entire team, and we concluded, our clients and we concluded to proceed. While such a change would take away from some of this building's competitive position in the marketplace with docks on both sides of the building, which certainly was a competitive advantage, and cost our clients some serious money to implement this, our clients agreed to this change and authorized us to commence design. We're presently in engineering design for this, building, architecture, engineering, all that, and expect to submit engineered plans in the very near term, first to the Inland Wetlands Agency in just a matter of days, and then to the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff. Staff will have it when the Wetlands Commission has it. It will have the same building size. Parking will be increased to what was normally required for this building, no reserve. There's 333 spaces, all of it on the easterly side of the building, so there's no need for any reserved spaces. 8 of the spaces are handicapped. We indicate them right now at the northerly part of the, up against the building, near the proposed office entrance. The office will, again, be at the northeast corner there. We're proposing 34 EV charging stations. 10 are activated charging stations, so they'll be operational on day one when this facility opens. And then 24 in reserve, meeting the requirements of the zoning regulations you just recently adopted with respect to that. We have 54 loading docks. All of them line the west side of the building, one long row. So there no longer are those on the northeast and northwest corners of the property. There's a slight reduction in trailer spaces down to 111. I think we're at 118 if I recall correctly. Again, all moved to the west side of the development completely, nothing on the east side. All trucks enter from Talbot, as was the case, but they turn left and right. Once they go into the entrance drive, they take a left to go to the north, and they also take a right to go to the south to access the loading docks all along the westerly side of the building. We have the same 90-foot buffers. Again, that's 50 feet of forest, mature forest, along the southerly and easterly sides of the property, including wrap around that wetlands to the northeast corner. And within that, internally, we have an additional 6-foot berm, earthen berm, planted on both sides of it, peaks in the middle. Ben Wheeler will get into more detail on that, but it's heavily planted with evergreen trees, and that will be a more effective 90-foot buffer. We have reconfigured the water quality basins, but still, it's still around 2 acres in size. It has a fountain that we've added for aeration purposes. Similar to what you see at DST Output, which is now called Broadridge, down at, I think it's 125 Ellington Road, southerly of I-291. The building to property line setbacks were identical to what we had before along Governor's Highway, 96.9 feet. We have 207 feet toward the property line, common property line with Carla's Pasta in the southwest corner. 460 feet to Talbot Lane. That's from essentially where the driveway is, the building overlay over to the right-of-way for Talbot Lane. We're 214 feet on the south side. This is, again, to the property line from the building. And 380 feet to the east side, 385 feet to the east side. That's really all, it's all parallel, so it's all essentially the same all the way up and down the building on that side. So 385 feet, just short of 400 feet. Building distance to the homes, I believe I got these correct. From Edgewood Drive to the building, those closest homes this is, I think we have 320 feet. To Governor's Highway, the closest home to the building that's off this southwest corner of that building, that residence, to the northeast, extreme northeast corner of our building, just to the corner. We've got, let's see, what was that? 406. Okay, excuse me. We've got 240 feet. And then to Cody Circle, to the building, closest house, we've got 473 feet. Again, it was 385 feet to the property line. Loading dock distances to homes, this is of significance. We have 360 feet to the closest homes to closest loading dock on Edgewood Drive, 580 feet to Governor's Highway, and over 900 feet to Cody, and that actually goes through the building to get that distance. It would be a lot longer going around the building, but we just drew a straight line as the crow flies. We have increased interior landscaping a bit. We have decreased impervious coverage a bit with this plan. I would like to next go to, if we could have an exhibit for Goman and York, just summarize that, if I may. Okay, so Dr. Donald Poland was, he's a former town planner in the area. He's got his doctorate from an institution in London, and he prepared a municipal fiscal impact analysis, and I just want to tell you some of those highlights. First of all, the taxes being paid on the property at this moment, all 4 parcels that are vacant right now, add up to about $16,000 a year. What's going to happen is when this is built and operational, real property taxes, that's just a building and the improvements there alone, will amount, he projects, this Dr. Pullen projects, it'll be just over $700,000. It's, in his report, $701,298. It will become one of the largest taxpayers in South Windsor. He's also projecting personal property taxes at about 10% of that, so $70,129. So estimated projection revenues, that doesn't include any motor vehicles may be there that may be taxable, just projected revenues from real property and personal property at $771,427, which is quite a substantial increase from the $16,000 today. He also went through an analysis, say, what is this net to the town? And he indicates that costs in municipal services for such a development, in municipal services to support the development is about $208,000. So the net positive fiscal impact per year is $563,142. So every development, every property in this town that brings taxes to the town has costs. Single-family home, for example, has police, fire, plowing streets, education for children, etc., other facilities, parks and stuff. And in this case, the 27% of the taxes go toward costs on average, and so we should have a net gain to the town of $563,142. Also on top of that, substantial taxes are paid every year. There are one-time development fees, land use permitted fees, such as the Planning and Zoning Commission, et cetera, just shy of $11,000. Building permit and fire marshal fees are substantial, $417,000 and change. And sewer connection fees, again, substantial, just over $210,000. So one-time estimated, one-time development fees, $638,000, just over that, on top of your annual taxes that you'll be receiving. And incidentally, that personal property that's if they don't have a facility such as that FedEx on Sullivan Avenue that has an automated package handling system inside, which is very substantial. You could have that as well, but these are based on nationwide numbers. As for economic impact for job creation, they're projecting about just over 100 jobs for construction. Those are temporary jobs. But the permanent jobs, the expectation based on this analysis is that the permanent jobs in the distribution center itself are 300, and the truck drivers, permanent for freight hauling, those are just over 100. So a total of just over 400 jobs generated by this facility, and payroll is expected to be for the distribution center workers and for the truck drivers in excess of $16 million, which they call total wealth created per year. So $16 million. So that concludes my summary of that. Just a couple other things, and that is that all that we've described tonight is what is permitted by right in the industrial zone. We don't need any special provisions other than the waiver for our pole height only on the west side of the building, the pole height in the truck trailer storage areas and the loading dock areas. That needs, because it's a broad expanse there, it needs higher poles to be efficient, proper distribution of lighting. And that's with full cutoff fixtures, so you have no, it's dark sky compliant, so the light does not go up into the air. So those are, we're requesting, I think it's 35 feet, Ben? Yeah, 35-foot pole heights in the truck areas. That has been granted in each of the prior large industrial developments that this commission has seen in recent history. We do not require any zone change for this application. We don't need any zoning amendments for this application. Zone change meaning a change in the zoning map. We don't need a change in the plan of conservation development, which is a guide. We don't need a zoning amendment. We don't need a special exception or a special permit. This is a permitted use by right, and we do not require any variances for this development. That concludes my presentation. Next up is Benjamin Wheeler, who's going to address landscape architecture, site engineering, and other aspects of the plan.
Thank you, Peter. For the record, Ben Wheeler, licensed landscape architect in the state of Connecticut with Design Professionals. As Peter mentioned, want to go over with you a little more detail on the plans. As he mentioned, because of the recent change to the dock configuration on the site, the fully engineered site plans are currently in development at this point, but we are far enough along to present some of the numbers that Peter gave to you tonight and to show you the exhibit that we have before you. The plans and reports related to the site civil engineering were prepared by the licensed professional engineers in our office, headed by Mr. Jameson, as Mr. DeMalley mentioned. As far as the existing drainage patterns on the site is actually split. A good portion of the site drains to the west towards Carlos Pasta, and the other remaining portion of the site drains to the east towards Cody Circle. The site that drains to the west drains toward a stilling basin at the southwest corner of the site in approximately this area, and a 36-inch pipe. Both of those were constructed at the time of the Carlos Pasta expansion, which was specifically constructed to accommodate the drainage runoff from this site. The proposed design will utilize the same drainage points with all the runoff from the developed portion of the site heading to the west, and to the areas outside the berm will continue to drain as they do today. For the developed portion of the site, we have a slightly different treatment for the conveyance mechanisms on each side of the building. The eastern half of the building will use a more conventional catch basin and storm pipe structure that collect the runoff from the northeast parking lot and direct it towards the water quality basin. The southern portion of the parking lot will just have direct runoff into the water quality basin, where it will be treated before being released at the southwest corner of the site, as I had mentioned. And also the eastern half of the roof will be directed towards the water quality basin, with the exception of one roof leader, which will be piped to one of the existing water courses, the southern existing water course, to help maintain the hydrology in that water course. On the western half of the building, we have a mix of the conventional catch basin and storm pipe conveyance system with underground infiltrator units at the southern half of the site. As our stormwater calculations indicated with the reports that were submitted with the previous design, we do not take into account any infiltration from those chambers because of the nature of the groundwater in the site. However, we do expect at certain times of the year, because of the nature of those types of units, that if the groundwater is low enough, it will help promote groundwater recharge as one of their functions, in addition to water quality treatment. The water quality basin that Peter mentioned is about 2 acres in size, and like I said, that will discharge into the stilling basin that was installed with Carlos Pasta. And the pipe connecting the water quality basin to the stilling basin will have an outlet control structure to regulate and attenuate the flows leaving the site. And just as with the previous design, our revised design will attenuate the peak flows leaving the site for the 2, 10, 25, 50, and 100-year storms. The perimeter of the water quality basin will be planted with a retention basin wildlife seed mix, which is supplied by Ernst Conservation Seeds, and that is done so to help provide additional treatment of the stormwater quality and also to provide habitat and food sources for wildlife. And that whole perimeter covers about 1 acre in area. The narrow portion of the water quality basin to the south of the building will be seeded and planted with a combination of the retention basin floor mix, again from Ernst Conservation Seeds, and a variety of wetland plugs that will further aid in the treatment of the stormwater before it leaves the site into the stilling basin. All of the water quality treatment measures in the previous plan and in the future plans were designed and will be designed in accordance with the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual, as is detailed in our stormwater management report. And this is the most recent guidelines issued by the state for the design of stormwater quality treatment. Based on those guidelines, the water quality basin provides well in excess of what is required in the manual. And as Mr. Damali alluded to, we'll also have a circulator fountain to help circulate the water, promoting water health in that area, to help support wildlife that will end up taking home in and around the water quality basin. The infiltrator system will include a series of isolator rows that are sized per the Stormwater Quality Manual requirements for water quality flow. And the design, based on conferring with the town engineer in one of his comments, all of the water quality treatment practices on the site, the isolator rows for the chambers and the water quality basin, will be sized for the 2-year storm water quality volume and flow. Typically, the manual only requires the first inch of treatment, so this will provide basically 3 times the treatment of what is required in the stormwater quality manual to further ensure clean runoff from the site. The submitted plans include an extensive erosion and sedimentation control measures, which will be implemented during construction of the site, and our revised plans will follow the same types of treatments. Those plans were designed following the 2002 Connecticut Guidelines for Soil Erosion and Sediment Control, and again, those are the most recent guidelines published by the state for the implementation and the design of those plans. Some of those measures include perimeter silt fence controls, temporary diversion swales, temporary siltation basins, inlet control measures, gabion wood chip dikes, and a stone construction entrance located on Talbot Lane, which is where all the construction traffic will be required to enter and leave the site. And also making sure that the temporary stabilization of exposed areas are required to make sure that erosion and construction-related dust is kept under control during the construction of the site. And as we've been going through the process with the Inland Wetlands Agency Conservation Commission, they have had some comments, and also town staff has had some comments, and we have further enhanced the notes on that to provide additional dust control. As Mr. Damali alluded to, we are in the process and finalizing the hearings with the Inland Wetlands Agency for a portion of the disturbance to the agricultural watercourses on the east side. We are proposing a wetlands mitigation area on the west side of the site, directly adjacent to an existing wetland that will be left in place. We believe that the creation of this wetlands, between the plantings that we're providing and the hydrology that we're providing, that the ecological quality of that new wetland area will far exceed that of the disturbed watercourses as proposed as part of this plan. Just to go in a little more detail about the buffer and the berm that Mr. Damali mentioned, again, it's a minimum of a 6 foot high planted berm along the southern and eastern boundary of the site. It will be planted with a double row of evergreen trees of a variety of different species to make sure that it's not all one species through there. It will also be seeded with the showy northeast native wildflower mixed, again by Ernst Conservation Seeds. This will provide an area for wildlife, and also provide plants to support pollinator habitat, which is so important ecologically these days. As a part of our plan set, we did submit the required buffer cross sections, looking from the residential abutting properties through the site to the proposed building. This exhibit has been updated based on the latest plans. The top section here is showing the section in this area here, going from the closest residence on Cody Circle over to the proposed building. As you can see, there's quite a distance from the building, from the house to the building. Mr. DeMalley outlined those distances. Here's the property line separating the two properties. The 50-foot buffer, which again, all of the existing mature trees in that area will be retained, as well as any understory growth that may be present. And then our proposed berm and evergreen tree plantings exist beyond that. So again, from the property line to the outside edge of the berm is 90 feet, and the regulations only require a 50-foot buffer. So as you can see, this, especially with the berm and the plantings on top of that, certainly does the job of screening the proposed building from the adjacent residence on Cody Circle. The middle section here is the area, it's this section as shown on the plan view, crossing to the nearest residence on Edgewood Drive. Because of in both instances, because of the location of the water quality basin, that provides further separation between those residences and the proposed building and the associated activities around there. Again, maintaining 50 feet of existing mature trees with the 6-foot berm and evergreen plantings on top of that beyond the initial 50 feet. We do believe that based on these sections that we are meeting the buffer requirements of the zoning regulations. In the regulations, the requirement is that the activity on the site will not be immediately apparent within 5 years' time, and certainly with the existing vegetation to remain and the solid 6-foot high berm, that will be the case in addition to the plantings on top. And then the other requirement is the field of view substantially obscured visually by the maturity of the planting. And it's a little difficult to see, but we are showing on this plan what the plantings will look at 5 years' time, and then what you see here is the dark outline is plantings at maturity, which with the evergreen species that we have selected on top of the berm will essentially match the height of the proposed building. Going back to the site plan, we are proposing an additional berm along Governor's Highway to provide some screening of the building, parking areas, and the loading docks. This will be planted with a mix of evergreen trees, deciduous shade trees, and ornamental trees to create a more naturalized look. And this will also have a lawn area underneath as opposed to the wildflower seed mix to provide a more manicured look along Governor's Highway. There are 2 breaks in the berm. The one on the west side is right here, and that was a requirement of the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Connecticut DEEP. There is a species of special concern in that area, a plant, that they have required of the project to leave it in place. And so therefore to regrade that area to install a berm and plantings was not desirable from their perspective. The other break in the berm is for the entrance drive on the northeast corner of the building, which with this plan is where all of the auto traffic will enter and leave the site. Neither of the berms, the berm along Governor's Highway nor the berm along the residential properties on the east and south sides of the site, neither of those will substantially change from the original plans that were, or the latest plans that were submitted as a part of this application. To go into a little more detail about landscaping, we are proposing a row of street trees, deciduous shade trees along Talbot Lane, as well as flowering trees on both sides of the truck entrance. We have a series of deciduous shade trees throughout the islands and the truck court area. And then over on the east side of the site, in the auto parking area, we have a mix of shade and flowering trees spread throughout that in each of the islands. And we are exceeding the requirement for at least one tree for every 10 spaces as required in the zoning regulations. And as well as Mr. DeMelli mentioned, we are meeting the requirements, we're exceeding the requirements for interior landscaping. This plan shows a slight increase over what was proposed previously. Some of the islands within the auto parking area will also include understory plantings of evergreen shrubs, ornamental grasses, and perennials, just to add to the aesthetics of the parking lot on that side of the site. The main entrance to the building will be located in the northeast corner of the building. Similar to the previous plans, that area will be enhanced again with a mix of evergreen shrubs, ornamental grasses, perennials, and flowering shrubs to enhance, again, the aesthetics of the building and the main entrance, highlighting that as the main entrance into the building. We will be proposing 2 ground-mounted signs with this plan, given that the truck entrance and the auto entrance will be separated. One along Talbot Lane to the south side of the truck entrance here, and one to the west of the entrance on Governor's Highway. As of this point, the applicant does not have a tenant lined up for this building. Once that is the case, the required sign permit will be applied for, and at that point in time, those signs will be reviewed by town staff for compliance with the zoning regulations. As far as lighting is concerned, as Mr. DeMelli mentioned, all the fixtures proposed on this site will be full cutoff fixtures to meet the zoning regulations. They will also be energy efficient LED lights. The current site plan and the revised site plan will ensure that light levels meet the zoning regulations, specifically that they will be at or below 0.25 foot candle at all property lines. And in fact, the light levels based on the software models will be at a level of 0 at the 50-foot buffer line. So will be well below the required light levels at the property lines adjacent to the residential neighbors. The proposed lights on the north side, the east side, and the south side of the building, as Mr. DeMelli alluded to, will be 25 feet high. So all of the lights immediately adjacent to the residential neighbors will be 25 feet high, and that conforms with the zoning regulations. Also, as Mr. DeMelli mentioned, the lights in the truck court area, for efficiency purposes, we're proposing to be 35 feet tall, including wall-mounted building lights up against the loading docks for safety purposes. We did, with the original application, submit a lighting waiver request to allow for the 35-foot poles in this area. We will submit a revised request. Basically, the only thing that changed at this point from the original request is the addition of 1 additional light pole from the initial request. The initial request was for 12 poles and 8 wall-mounted lights. At this point in time, we believe that it will end up being 13 poles and 8 wall-mounted lights. But again, because of the change to all the truck activity on the west side of the building, that's where all of those taller poles will be located. And as is described in the original waiver request, I won't go into all the details, but we believe that this request does meet the 6 criteria outlined by the zoning regulations for the commission to consider to grant such a request. And it is certainly consistent with the waivers granted by the commission recently for similar facilities in South Windsor. So with that, that covers my portion of the presentation, and I will turn it back over to Mr. DeMelli.
Thank you, Ben. Just a couple other points. One was that the Inland Wetlands Agency application is still pending. Their hearing that was originally scheduled for last Wednesday was delayed, postponed till October 20th. So as you know, you cannot take action until after they have acted on the application. And also, the Economic Development Commission endorsed this proposal. We went before them on 2 occasions. And one other thing is, on the southwest corner, you'll observe that on the set of plans that you have, that southerly of the trailer parking and the loading docks is the open space for the Edgewood Drive area. So with that, we'd like to pass out executive summary, but John Plant will be coming forward from Langen to review his traffic engineering assessment.
Thank you, Peter. My name is John Plant. I'm a professional engineer with over 35 years of experience with Langen Engineering and Environmental Services at 555 Long Wharf Drive in New Haven. So we took a look at the traffic relating to this proposed development. We submitted a full traffic study for the previous configuration of the site, and we have revised that traffic study to reflect the new circulation associated with this new site plan. That full traffic study will be submitted to staff, but what Peter just handed out to you was the executive summary for that revised traffic impact study. We looked at a number of different things when we look at traffic, and one of them is the access points. And the graphic you see up here illustrates the new site plan with trucks illustrated in the purple and employees or passenger cars in the green. And as you can see, these 2 areas of parking and circulation have been separated completely, which is a good thing for safety and operations. And all, as Peter and Ben have said, all truck activity will be on the west side of the building, accessing the site to and from the site from Talbot and Governor's towards Route 5. As I think we all know, their tractor truck traffic is prohibited on Governor's Highway from Talbert down to Ellington. So you can see illustrated in here, all truck traffic will be going to the left, which again makes sense from an operational standpoint, not only just regulations, but from an operational standpoint, they want to get in and out of Route 5 and onto the highways from that direction. The passenger vehicles you see in green will come in and out of the driveway on Governor's Highway, unsignalized full movement driveway at that location, providing access both east and west depending where the employees or visitors are coming from. You can see internally there are 2 connector roads on the north and south of the building. Those are gated off, are used for emergency activities, but not for regular activities, again, with the goal of separating truck activities in the truck court from passenger and employee vehicles in that parking lot. As I said, our traffic report reflects that change. One more thing to mention on the truck circulation. We propose to add signage at Talbert and Governor's, further reiterating to all truck drivers, left turn only. There is a sign on Governor's just east of Talbot, but we're proposing to add one on Talbot just as a reminder, left turn only for truck traffic. And also at the employee entrance on Governor's Highway at the request of staff to add a sign directly across the driveway, just in case in any future openings of the gates or something that trucks go left. So we'll be adding those signs to reiterate the traffic patterns. So Langen conducted data collection in June of this year. We at 3 intersections, Route 5 and Governors, Talbert and Governors in Ellington. We adjusted those volumes to pre-COVID level based on existing counts. We made those adjustments to use as our basis in the study. And from there, we developed the trip generation associated with the proposed use. We utilized a ITE Land Use Code 156 warehouse, which generates a little bit more traffic than a standard warehouse, again, to provide a conservative look at this, and that type of use relates to, primarily storage and or consolidation of manufactured goods that can either go out to a retail use or to other warehouses. So this represents majority of the tenants in the market, providing the developer an opportunity to be flexible within that land use and less intensive land uses. So we provided that as our basis of our analysis, and based on that, trip gen in the morning, we would anticipate 130 trips into the site and 138 trips into the site, 138 trips out of the site. That includes trucks and employees. And those are during the morning peak hour. In the evening peak hour, we would expect approximately 172 trips in and 81 trips out of the site. And again, both trucks and cars. We have a detailed analysis in the traffic study, but in summary, we do not degrade any of the intersections' levels of service. They operate at level of service C or better. And we looked at existing conditions. We looked at background conditions, which is projecting out a couple years to when this building would be built, if approved, as a background condition to compare the build condition. And in comparing the background to the build, I want to reiterate, there's no operational change to the levels of service at these intersections. We have a couple of recommendations in there, the widths of the driveways to appropriately handle the turning movements on the driveway to Talbot. Full movement driveway, we've recommended widths to be incorporated to handle the turning movements, and sight distances at the intersections, Talbot and Governors, is adequate, more than adequate for the truck movements coming out of there, the required sight distance, intersection sight distances, and the same goes for the employee access driveway. The provided intersection sight distance exceed the requirements. And obviously, as Ben indicated, there's extensive landscaping, and that landscaping will be designed to make sure to accommodate those sight distances. So with that, I think our conclusion is that the existing infrastructure and the existing the proposed access driveways accommodate the proposed use effectively with no degradation to the levels of service of the intersections in the study area. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up, we have George Fellner. He's from East Haddam Office of Fellner Architects, and he's going to describe the architecture of the building.
So good evening. I'm George Fellner from Fellner Architects, and so we're going to start with the floor plan, and I'm just going to go through a couple of basic outline of each of these drawings. The first floor plan that you're looking at is 810.
Excuse me. If you would, please talk into the microphone
Sorry, it's 810.
and tilt it down just a hair, please. Thank you.
Sorry. It's 810 feet wide by 440 feet wide, and it's approximately 360,000 square feet. The present plan that you're looking at right now shows the 27 loading docks on each side. As you've heard repeatedly this evening, that will be changed. We are in the process of redesigning that to show all 54 loading docks on the west side. And if we can go to the next plan, please. The surrounding commercial buildings, just to quickly look at what the context is of the area. The Temple Beth Hillel, the commercial storefront services, the Harris Rebar, Carla's Pasta, all typically have primarily masonry and metal panel exterior facades. And you see a series of horizontal banding happening on some of these buildings, and what we're proposing to do with our building is to design it to be harmonious and compatible with these surrounding buildings so that they can coexist. We can move on to the next slide. These are the elevations, but we'll go to the next one, which is a little easier to see. These are colored elevations of the four facades. 40 feet high, taken at the average grade. If you look at the west elevation, which is the second one right there, I believe, note that that will have a full length of loading docks going all the way from left to right. So that'll be represented in the updated elevations. The east elevation, which is the other long elevation, will no longer have the loading docks. That'll all be offices and doors and windows. So if we talk about the composition of the elevations, we'll start with the base, which is a 10-foot high band of split-face concrete block, which serves as the textured base for the whole building around the perimeter. And this is punctuated by a row of windows and glazed entry doors at office locations, as well as the punctuation of the band at the overhead doors on the other side. If you go to the west elevation or the east, those will all be overhead doors and egress doors punctuating that band. The whole upper section of 28 feet wide band will consist of a fluted metal panel wall system with the color of cool desert beige. And there will be a series of linear clear-story windows, which you can see, as pointed out, breaking up the large areas in strategic points and also providing the additional benefit of natural lighting for the interior. At the office areas, if you can go to the office area, the dark surface consists of a upper flat metal panel wall system, which both articulates the wall office areas, and it also cascades down with that cool harvest brown color, which bends in turn to form the sloped canopies at the entries. If you go to the side elevation, you can see how that works. So there's the sloped canopy that results from that cascading element. So the goal is to provide a harmonious blend of masses, elements, textures, and colors. If we go to the next slide, please, we can look at the renderings. And so this first one is a rendering, a view from the intersection of Governor's Highway and Talbot Lane. It's halfway up the berm, looking through the fir trees, and it looks towards the west elevation. The one thing to note is that the rendering will be updated to show loading docks for the full elevation, not just going halfway in that back portion. If we go to the next rendering, this shows what the entry area looks for the office. Again, will be updated for the modifications. And then if we go to the materials, we've selected the Butler System product for the metal panel wall system, which has a 3-inch foam core insulation, which you can see in the upper right corner. So we have the fluted cool desert beige on the left and the flat panel cool harvest on the right, which you saw represented in the elevations and renderings. Below that, you see the split face concrete block, which will be a tan gray color. That's that 10-foot wide base. And so the idea is to use these complementary earth tones to enhance the visual effect for themes and variations in terms of the surface treatment, textures, and colors. The last thing I want to mention is the lighting. We have LED wall luminaires by Lithonia Lighting, 4,000 Kelvin, downlights. And at the office areas, we will be using LED recessed downlights by USAI Lighting at 3,000 degrees Kelvin. So we are, as I mentioned, we are presently in the process of updating our architectural plans and elevations to incorporate the modifications. Our intent is to design this building to be harmonious and compatible with the surrounding context of buildings and to be in compliance with the zoning regulations. Thank you.
Chairman Pasiconis, that concludes our formal presentation. We've held to the time that was allotted to us previously, so we leave it to you. Just to summarize, we have gone from a plan that we thought was sensitive to the neighbors in terms of separating distances, loading docks, the building, double buffer, that type of thing, to a plan, to the most recent plan that you have in schematic design that we have up on the screen right now, which moves all loading docks and all truck parking to the west side, which is opposite most of where the residential neighborhood is. So all truck activities on the west side of the building adjacent to existing industrial development. We believe it's a plan that's sensitive to the neighborhood and also meets all of your regulations. Only asks for that one waiver for the height within the truck court area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Light.
Thank you. This is a request for site plan approval of approximately 360,000 square foot distribution facility, including about 12,000 square feet of office on 30-plus acres, property located 525 Talbot Lane, 475, 551 Governor's Highway in the industrial zone. Tenant uses is office and warehouse space for distribution. There's no known tenant at this time. There is no outdoor storage proposed with this application. The applicant has provided a fiscal impact analysis addressing potential benefits for the type of project for the town, as well as a traffic study and a waiver request. Maximum impervious coverage allowed in this zone is 65%. They're proposing just under 58%. Proposed building height, 40 feet is allowed. Front yard setback is, we allow 35 feet, they're proposing 97 feet. Rear yard setback, we allow 40 feet, they're about 240 feet. Parking requirements for this building is 333 parking spaces. They're providing 333 spaces. Proposal also includes 10 EV charging stations, including 2 handicap spaces and 24 EV ready spaces per our EV charging regulation. There are 54 loading docks shown servicing the facility and 111 trailer spaces. Loading docks and spaces are located on the westerly side of the building. Our zoning regulations prohibit loading docks from facing the public highway, and activities must be screened from the roadway. The docks do not face Governor's Highway, and the applicant is proposing a 6-foot berm with plantings along the site's frontage to screen the activities. As was indicated tonight, there has been a recent plan change based on a comment that I made. Again, with the increasing number of interests in the public, I recommended that they look at where their loading docks were, and rather than request a waiver, which is something that you could request under the regulations, they've opted to put them on the westerly side, which I think is a better plan for the neighborhood. There are 2 access drives servicing the site. The primary access off of Talbot Lane will be a full service drive for trucks, and the Governor's Highway access will be for employees. There is a driveway that circumferences the building. Gates are shown separating the truck traffic from other traffic on site. I would anticipate these gates would be for emergency purposes to be able to circulate around the building. I don't anticipate truck traffic going around the building. A traffic study has been submitted and reviewed by staff. The findings indicate the road network can accommodate the anticipated traffic increase, and then no improvements are necessary at this time. The police department has requested a sign be added directly across from the employee entrance, stating trucks are required to turn left. That's in the event trucks do find their way to that exit. We would request that the traffic study be updated, which it sounds like it's on our way, to reflect the changes, and I know that the police services would like to take a look at it, knowing that traffic will be entering off of Governor's Highway, and we'd report back at the next meeting any concerns at that time. This project will be subject to the Office of State Traffic Administration approval, or OSTA, and they have full jurisdiction over traffic signals and road improvements on state roads, so they would be addressing anything at the Governor's Highway and Route 5 intersection. Any changes that are proposed through the OSTA approval process, we ask that they be shown on any final plans. This property is adjacent to industrial zoned land to the west, northwest, and residentially zoned land to the east, southeast, and northeast. A 50-foot buffer is shown along the residential zone line. The applicant is proposing to leave the first 50 feet as untouched and then construct a 6-foot-high berm with buffer plantings in the next 40 feet along the southerly and easterly side of the property. Cross-sections of the buffer have been provided and were reviewed by Mr. Wheeler tonight. All proposed lighting are full cutoff fixtures. Lighting indicates wall packs as well as 25-foot poles in the employee parking area, similar to other distribution facilities recently approved. The applicant has requested a waiver to have the light poles in the truck area 35 feet in height. The commission can grant this waiver after finding that traffic or other hazards will not be created. Generally, property values will be conserved. No adverse effects on existing uses in the area. General welfare of the community will be served, and no adverse environmental impacts will be created. And the topography of the land makes the property suitable for the higher poles. The applicant has provided color elevations. They intended both freestanding and building signage. Landscaping has been included along the site's frontage and throughout the parking areas, meeting our interior parking lot requirements. The applicant is proposing a black vinyl fence along the property boundary on the westerly side of the site. It does go up to the gated areas, so the easterly side of the site does not have any fencing around it. There are no sidewalk or pathways shown on the plans, and the current sidewalk plan in our POC does not call for any sidewalks along this stretch of Governor's Highway. I was wondering if it could be graded so that a future pathway or sidewalk could be installed, similar to what we did along our distribution facilities on Ellington Road. The Architecture Design Review Committee has reviewed this project on September 1st, and they will be re-reviewing it with the elevation changes, and they were requesting some materials be brought. So that is slated for our October 21st meeting. Report back at the next hearing on that. The site is serviced by Public Water and Sewer. Water Pollution Control Authority will be required. The Fire Marshal's Office will be reviewing the revised layout that we just received. Now forward any comments at our next meeting. Same from the police. There are areas of regulated wetlands on the site. Inland Wetlands has held 2 public hearings with a 3rd public hearing scheduled on Wednesday, October 20th. Staff will report back to the commission with their decision once it has been acted upon. If this application is approved, the planning department would request that the properties be combined by deed and filed in the land records. And I would defer any further comments to the revised plans coming in and taking a look at those. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll turn to our director, or our town engineer, Jeff Doolittle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. So my comments obviously were written with regard to the previous plans. They still apply to this plan, even though it's only conceptual. So I'm asking you that some items be shown on the periphery of this site, including curb, which exists and does not exist along Talbot Lane, along Governor's Highway and the frontage of the piece, the elevations of the catch basins and manholes at the intersection of Talbot Lane and Governor's Highway. There's a fire hydrant on Governor's Highway by the northeast corner of the property. And there's a piece of concrete barrier curb along Governor's Highway in front of the property where the vegetation is open. That's because this was originally, Newbury Road went through this property, or was planned to go through this property way back when. And some elevations of the drainage structures that exist on the east side of the property near Baker Lane and Cody Circle. It's asked that they be bituminous curb along Talbot Lane much of which is missing. It's been beaten up by trucks over the years, be replaced where it's missing or damaged. The concrete barrier curb, the town would take back to our public works garage for future use. Reserved parking spaces are no longer an issue. EV installed and ready spaces, I believe, are now labeled for level 2 charging per your regulations. Main entrance to the building has been identified. There is an existing low spot on Governor's Highway near the northeast corner of the property where there is no catch basin or drainage pipe. Water just flows off the road, actually onto this property and maybe abutting properties. We're asking that that be continued and formalized with the right to drain onto this property. As I said, there is no catch basin. It's a low spot. The water has no place else to go. There is a wet area shown on the plans in that area, so this water would feed that wet area on this property, and we ask that that be continued. The plans don't show any water going to or from the existing drainage structures on this property near the back of Baker Lane and Cody Circle. So the question is what will be done with the existing drainage structures. The stormwater drainage, I had some questions about the underground detention chambers, which I think they answered, but they will be realigned at least with this new layout. The stormwater system should be designed so that all the pipes drain into the detention basin with a 10-year storm, and water does not back up into the system at a 10-year storm. And the water flows in and out of the detention basin adequately and does not have an opportunity to short circuit. In other words, go through the detention basin and come out in a shorter amount of time than designed. The average daily and peak sewer flows should be provided from this building. There should be a monitoring manhole in the sanitary sewer lateral along Governor's Highway for this building for town access for monitoring and inspection. Town details should be followed, and WPCA review and approval is needed for this project. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. So at this time, we do have some time for public comment. Do we have any letters to read into the record? Yeah, if you would, please.
Okay, this is a letter or email sent in by Robert Dickinson, 10 Seabury Drive in Bloomfield, Connecticut. This is for comments for the public hearing for 25 Talbot Lane site plan on Tuesday, October 12th. Dear Planning and Zoning Commission members, I suggest that the Planning and Zoning Commission require the inclusion of either a 10-foot multi-use bituminous side path or a 5-foot concrete sidewalk abutting this development on both Governor's Highway and Talbot Lane. Governor's Highway because it is a arterial/connector road, and Talbot Lane to provide a safe way to go between businesses and to safely exercise for employees. Safe access is needed for pedestrians and bicyclists to establish connectivity throughout South Windsor. Opportunities should not be lost to further connectivity. I believe the multi-use 10-foot bituminous side path option would be best because it is less expensive than a 5-foot concrete sidewalk and is easier and less costly to maintain. Cost of a multi-use path would likely be less than the landscaping with trees as shown on the drawings. South Windsor should have a long-term goal that every arterial or connecting road should have a multi-use path or sidewalk on both sides for safe movement of pedestrians and bicyclists. As development continues, there will be more traffic and more need for safe connectivity. Requiring a multi-use side path or sidewalk when development or redevelopment takes place is the most cost-effective way to make progress toward this goal. Sincerely, Robert Dickinson.
That's it? Okay, thank you. So at this time, I would like to invite the public to come up to the podium. First, those in favor of the application. And I'll remind the public that we have a sign-in sheet up there, so if either before or after a speaker addresses the commission, if they could sign in. And when stepping forward, if you could please just introduce yourself to the commission. Peter, can we shut this off for now, or? Awesome. Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none. Is there anyone who would like to speak against this application or have questions or concerns they would like addressed? Please step forward.
I plan on giving extensive comments in 2 weeks. I just, can I still make it?
Excuse me. Please address the microphone.
Hello, Rich DeLay, 95 Cody Circle. Thank you for your service. I do plan on making extensive comments in 2 weeks from now. Can I just still make a quick comment? to
Yeah,
kind of frame this?
Yeah, if you'd like to make comments, what I would ask generally is say what you want to say. Next time, try not to repeat exactly what you're saying.
Yep,
Okay.
no, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I just feel like it kind of needs to be said that on Friday, I went to the town planning department, and they told me that there would be no public participation in the meeting tonight, and encouraged myself and others to either, watch it on TV or Facebook, but, we could still come, but that there wouldn't be public participation. And that is what I passed on to our extensive opposition discussion list. So I just want to let that be known. Thank you.
Yeah, Chairman, I just would say that we anticipated having another public hearing item that would have taken up a good chunk of time, so I was kind of directing people to listen tonight and provide comments in 2 weeks, but
Which,
Yeah.
we certainly can start tonight.
yeah,
Right.
seemed reasonable. I just want that to be stated. So I don't know if people are prepared or probably, maybe save themselves for 2 weeks, but they clearly have the right to let their sentiments be known. So thank you.
Yes, and by all means, I'd encourage anybody who, doesn't want to speak tonight. The public hearing will be open, and we will hear from anybody who is attending.
Thank
So-
you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Do I sign?
Okay, so we can take a little bit more public comment right now. It's totally up to the public. Like I said, the public hearing will be kept open. So those who are not prepared to speak tonight, by all means, come back to our next meeting. I see a gentleman with a dark mask back there. Yes, please. Whichever way is better for you.
Let me just sign in, please.
Yep. And typically for anybody speaking from the public, if you get your mouth like 3 to 6 inches from the microphone, that's the best way that we can hear you and it be captured by our recording system. Thank you.
My name is Lee Lovering, and I live at 20 Elizabeth Street in South Windsor. I had a question, if I may, for the gentleman who did the traffic study.
Yep, if you could please direct your questions
Sorry.
to the chair.
I think you said that daily tractor-trailer traffic would be at the peak 140 coming in, 170 leaving. Am I correct? Something like that?
Excuse me, Lee.
Yes.
All questions should be directed to the chair.
Gotcha.
And then the
You can
commissioners
ask.
would
Okay.
be free to ask
I wanted
those
to
questions.
clarify the truck traffic that would be coming in and out during the day. And also, I'm curious as to what is the projected employee traffic coming in and out during the day at the, I think, the northeast end.
Yeah, and just to be clear, their truck traffic and employee analysis is the peak hours in the morning and the peak hours in the evening.
Gotcha.
So I'm not sure if the applicant actually addressed any other times, but that's typically what we're looking for.
Well, I would implore you folks on the commission in the next week or so, if you have the time, take a drive down Governor's Highway. See where the property is that they propose putting this up, and kind of envision this type of traffic coming in and out during the day. Governor's Highway is not a highway. At the least, it's a two-lane road. And having lived in the development there since 1977, I can say that every year and a half, 2 years, that road needs to be resurfaced based on the traffic that we're getting now. I think you folks on the commission did a terrific job when you approved Amazon, Home Depot, Coca-Cola. That land isn't around any type of large development. I don't think there were any major aquifer issues. I feel that where this property is being proposed, at the end of the day, it just isn't going to work. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Please, no outbursts. They simply aren't allowed. Thank you. Okay. If that's it for the public tonight, I'm going to turn to commissioners. Okay, please step forward. Please step forward. I didn't mean to cut anybody off.
No problem. Peter
But
Andrews, 80 Cody Circle. And
if you could, please speak into the microphone.
Peter Andrews, 80 Cody Circle.
You can turn that too, or move it in front of you. Awesome.
Thank you. I'm just wondering about noise that will be caused by the trucks coming in and out. The applicant wants to drop a 360,000 square foot warehouse in the middle of residential neighborhoods, directly abutting neighborhoods. I know the new Aldi that went in, I know there's noise complaints from a supermarket, from residents surrounding that area. And like, what kind of noise is this gonna have impacting all of our neighborhoods? Is there any way to know that? Probably not. But that's my main concern, and I oppose this application altogether.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other public hearing or public comment tonight? If not, I'd like to, okay. Gentleman with the hat. What I'd like to eventually get to is if any commissioners have any questions that they would like answers in future meetings, to get some of those out tonight to expedite the process.
Dear Commissioners, thank you for giving us the opportunity.
If you could just turn that in front of you,
Okay.
please.
My name is Wei Zhan. I live in 125 Cody Circle.
Okay.
I think I'm about on the 500 feet barter line. And yeah, thank you, the commissioners, giving us the opportunity to speak out. I just speak about only one thing. It's very simple. The tractor trailer traffic through Governor Highway, okay? Mm-hmm. Although we have signs along the road saying no through traffic for the tractor trailer through, from Governor Highway to the east through the Belton, section. But still, every day, you will still see many tractor trailers through that section, and without making a lot of noise and creating a lot of traffic issues. And just as early as last night, midnight, I sleep very late, maybe around 12 o'clock. I can hear a lot of noise generated by the tractor trailer through the Governor Highway. And there are even neighbors recording videos in the daytime. They recorded many large trucks driving through a Governor Highway. And so there's always, although there's a sign saying no tractor trailers through, but there's no police over there to give out tickets. So I remember maybe somewhere in the traffic report of this project mentioned that they didn't see any ticket from the police department for the trucks violating this rule, but nobody reinforced this regulation over there. So although you have the sign on the side of the road, it's basically useless. And the drivers still passing through because it's maybe convenient. Maybe they're not familiar with this area. And, that's I think this is one of the largest complaints from many of the neighbors in that area. And for this project, if you don't want the truck get into the residential area, you only set up a sign. That's useless, okay? Everybody know that. So in reality, you can't enforce that. Otherwise you need to place a police officer on that road every day, which is impossible. And I just want to ask, how can you enforce this rule, to prevent the trucks getting into the residential section? So that's my comment tonight. I strongly oppose this project.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak tonight? Okay, please. What? Excuse me. Yep. And generally, I ask other people get the opportunity first before somebody second. But
I understand.
I don't expect there'll be many more tonight. Okay.
You're very patient.
If you could
Just wanted to make another.
state your name one more time.
Yep, first name is Lee, last name Lovering. And the remark I wanted to make, and this is all I'm going to say, is the other impact that's come into play that I've seen firsthand is as far as wildlife. We're one street over from Edgewood, and we get deer now. In the last week, one day we had bobcat in the yard. The next day we had coyotes in the yard. Our neighborhood is turning into a wildlife refuge because it's coming from all that immediate wooded land and the wooded land north of Governors that has not been developed yet. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak tonight? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to turn to commissioners. Commissioner Cavagnaro.
Yes, just a few things. I want to point out, thank you for the presentation, very detailed and thorough. Some of the questions that I had coming in were answered about the through traffic for trucks, on how it's going to be directed through Governor's Highway off of Talbot, so thank you for that. I just wanted to address a few things I took down during the presentation and also during public input as well. So going through the traffic impact study, I'm not sure if I missed it or not, but of course the sound, for me, raises a concern when I've written down there's 64 spots for trucks, 54 loading docks. Really remains a concern when trucks are, for example, leaving the lot and taking a left onto Governor's Highway out. This is just a question really, will it remain a significant impact for and again, this is for anyone there that could answer this, but will it remain like a significant impact that'll stand out within the neighborhood?
Is that something the applicant's prepared to answer tonight, or?
Could you repeat that question again? I wasn't sure I caught the whole thing.
Yeah, sure. I probably wasn't specific enough, but I mentioned in the presentation, I recorded that there's 64 spots for trucks, 54 loading docks. For the traffic, I have recorded down 172 in with 183 out. And during public input, it made me realize really the sound. I was going through the traffic impact study during it as well, and I'm not sure if I missed it or not. But will the sound be significant enough that it'll be I wouldn't say distracting, but stick out for any neighbors in the area? Because I know, looking at the zoning map that I did today, the industrial lot for this is right next to residential. And of course, that's why there's so much precautions for this as well.
The town has an ordinance right now, a noise ordinance, that's in effect, that influences the, any sound generated between industrial properties and adjoining residential properties. So that's already in effect, and it's the law of the land in South Windsor. There also is a companion statute that also regulates that. So both of those things affect it. And there also are, do you want something else? Okay, they're all, and the standards, I think from industrial to residential, I think it's 61 decibels on the A scale is a maximum, and there also are impulse noises, very short noises go higher than that based on the ordinance and based on the statute. The police are familiar with that, and so it is an ordinance that is can be implemented. So it is done, and other things such as truck traffic on highways, that is not, does not conform to that regulation. That regulation, they're exempt. Trucks that go on highways are exempt from that regulation. So.
Okay, thank you. Yep. One or two more questions. So during the presentation, when we were looking at outside of the building, the design of it, and I know this is outdated now that we've decided that the loading docks will be on the west side of the lot. I noticed some of the doors, for example, in the design that was on the presentation. Just a concern of mine. I'm not sure if it was clear. I noticed at the front entrance of the design, it looked like there was a ramp with handrails and stuff. I saw some other doors on the side, more exit doors, I assume. Will those exit doors with the staircases have handrails as well? Because the last thing I want to see is, let's say, someone walking onto the door, tripping, and not having a handrail to catch themselves.
Yeah, for the record, Ben Wheeler again. Any stairs that lead from the building or emergency exits will have handrails per the building code, which regulates that. One thing that will change slightly with the revised plans that come in is the auto parking area. Because of the loading docks all be oriented on one side of the building, the auto parking areas will basically be up near the elevation of the finished floor of the building. So the ramps and the stairs that you see at the main entrances on the architectural plans and the site plans previously, those will be going away. So essentially the only staircases that will be left on the revised plans are in the loading dock area, because obviously that area it will have to be recessed 4 feet from the finished floor, to accommodate the tractor trailers backing up to the loading docks.
All right, thank you. And one last thing. We mentioned LED lights being in place for this lot. I'm just curious what time, like what hours they'll be on during the day, and I assume through the night as well. I just asked because, again, we're right near a residential zone. I'm just curious on that.
Yeah, correct. The lights will be on throughout the entire day for security purposes, to make sure that there's security and safety for any employees or trucks entering and leaving the site and pedestrians. So yeah, they are intended to be on at all hours.
All right, thank you. I have no further comments. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. I have a little technical question from Michelle. There's a a street shown on some of these site plans. It's like a short street coming off of Edgewood, but I don't think it really exists. Is that correct?
No, it does not.
Okay, thank you. So I was actually talking to a resident of my own neighborhood, and during the July period, the rains were excessive. Water was coming up out of, actually literally coming up and out of the catch basin grills and flooding the area. And my understanding is the storm sewers in a residential neighborhood are designed for a 10-year storm, and obviously they're, it seems like maybe in today's climate conditions, these years that we look at for stormwater control may not be adequate. And so we're looking at a standard that was written years ago. Are we tuned in to the current situation climate-wise with this design?
Again, Ben Wheeler, you are correct that per state and local standards, the piping and the stormwater system is designed to accommodate a 10-year storm, and we've designed that and will design it to that regulation. We did take a look at recently historical data at Bradley and Brainerd Airport, going back 30 years. Certainly it's you know, looking forward, I understand is your concern, but going back 30 years, 99.9% of rain events are at or below a 10-year storm level. So the storm piping system, you know, certainly accommodates almost 100% of storm events historically. Certainly as rainfall does increase, you know, that percentage will probably go down, but you know, it's, the expectation is it would not go down appreciably, you know, to the point where it would make sense to resize the storm structures to accommodate much larger storms.
Did you look at the July 2021 events?
At that point in time, I don't recall exactly when we looked at that data, but they were not 10-year storms. So based on the peak data, I do know that. And so, you know, essentially those should have been accommodated within the pipes.
So I don't know, maybe Mr. Doolittle knows something about the situation there.
I haven't looked at it any more detail than Ben has. I do know the storms in July were way more than 10-year storms and were beyond, as you say, what our storm drainage system could handle. So, I mean, we're looking at, you know, not increasing the size of storm drainage, but making sure we are using the updated rainfall data. So we're using the latest information.
All right, I guess maybe we'll hear more about that at the next hearing.
And to that point, if I may, Mr. Wagner, all of our storm drainage reports that we do, every time that we do a new storm drainage report, even though obviously we're before this quite often, we do pull updated rainfall data consistently. So we get the latest and greatest, you know, to make sure that that our detention basins and storm systems are sized appropriately. And again, as time has gone on, certainly the intensities of those storms, you know, the empirical data has increased. So.
Right, thank you for that. When you design your EV-ready spaces, keep in mind that when those are built out, they will need to have the required number of ADA spaces. So I know you've provided for ADA spaces in the installed spaces, but make sure your EV-ready spaces are located such that when you do build out and actually install the chargers, you have the correct number that's required in Table 6410B of the zoning regulation. Have you considered installing solar or building this, designing this building to accommodate solar and maybe perhaps using solar to offset some of the electric demand.
At this point in time, that will be tenant-driven. Certainly, the building can be designed to accommodate that, but it'll be based on tenant and requirements and desires.
I mean, it seems to me at least the architecture of the building ought to be able to support the added weight of those panels and any effect that they might have on the ability to remove snow during the winter. Is there, it seems to me that you've maintained a wildlife corridor, and actually, I was going to ask you about this before the resident brought that up, but is there actually a wildlife corridor running through that neighborhood or through that area? Besides that's, not people's streets, but, land that the town has, or what's the situation with wildlife movement in that area, do we know?
Are you asking me or the general public? Sorry, I'm not.
I'm asking whoever can answer, I guess.
So,
excuse me, only someone who's actually addressing me here can speak. Thank you.
So, as we reported in our presentation, we are keeping a 90-foot corridor, around the developed portion of the site between the existing vegetation that's to remain and the berm and the planted buffer. That does connect to both town open spaces that abut this property, even though they're not, those spaces are not large in nature, but they do connect to them. And then certainly north of this property on Governor's Highway, if you go behind the residential area, there's pretty significant undeveloped land that exists up in that area. So when this property is developed, if it is approved and developed per this plan, there will still be a corridor, connecting from Governor's Highway to the neighborhoods and both of those abutting town properties.
Okay, and I'm not sure whether the residents considered that a problem or a benefit. I'd kind of like to see deer in my yard, but then I don't like it when they're eating my bushes. So, the office area, you showed a staircase in the rendering. I just want to make sure that also has a handicapped access.
Correct. Again, as stated to Mr. Cavagnaro, part of the revised plans, the passenger vehicle parking area will be elevated closer to the finished floor of the building. So there will no longer be the need for stairs or an accessible ramp to access the office area.
And then in the truck area, are there truck drivers who require handicap access? I mean, are there people who are able to work in that business and might require handicapped access, and yet I didn't see any on the drawing. Maybe it's there and I just didn't see it. But how are we handling any truck driver that might need handicap
I think that's probably a question that you could get some information on and bring back to the next meeting.
Okay, great.
Very good.
I don't think our noise ordinance affects trucks, just as a comment. And that's about it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Dexter.
Just a couple things. We talked about the traffic study and how many trucks coming in and out during peak hours. Is there a feel, and without a tenant, maybe you can't answer, but is there a feel for overnight hours? Is there truck movement?
And we realize that might be based on what actual distributor comes in or whatever. But again, that might be something that you can give us. If you have it now, great. If you need till the next meeting.
Sure, Commissioner Dexter. Again, as the chair mentions, we prepared this based on ITE manual for this land use. Every tenant's going to be a little different, but within that land use is a number of different tenants that could use it. So on average, ITE projects that 75% of the trucks would access this site between 7 and 7. And then the rest would be distributed at other times. But, you know, majority between 7 and 7, 75%, 75, 80% between that time is what the studies of multiple land use, multiple facilities within this land use indicated.
And then I know from other warehouses in town, we've talked about trucks that idle and whatever environmental impact that may have. If they have to, if they're refrigerated, they have to stay running. Any thoughts? Without a tenant, I know, I'm asking.
I mean, that's always a question, and it's a good question. The state has idling requirements,
Okay.
and anybody would, driving a tractor trailer truck would be obliged to follow those regulations,
Okay.
and that is enforceable if it's ever deemed necessary.
Yeah, I'm bringing these things up as much for the public as myself, so.
Good question.
Now, the other thing is, we did a lot of work at Chapel Road intersection when Home Depot came in, because they had a train every day that comes in and goes onto the property. I know that's not the case at Governor's, but with all these tractor trailer trucks going down Governor's to Route 5, is there any discussion about that intersection? Have we improved that, Michelle? Did they go through, train people?
It was improved several years ago. As far as the crossing goes, it's in relatively good shape.
Okay.
I don't know if the signal, when the last time the signal was improved, it's the state signal.
Okay. I just throw that out there maybe for next time to give a look at it and see what you all think
again,
about.
I apologize, I didn't introduce myself. Again, John Plant from Langen. We have submitted this traffic study to OSTA. We're in the process with them. Again, our analysis at that location indicates we don't reduce the level of service for the intersection. We do see, and you see it in the old report, and it'll exist within the existing report because the impacts to the intersections doesn't change with the reconfiguration of the site, is that if necessary, optimization of that signal could improve the operations there. That's a DOT responsibility, whether they want to do that. So there is opportunity to tweak the signal timing at that intersection to improve it a little bit. But again, this project does not affect the overall level of service at that intersection.
And then my last question, I'm just going to ask the applicant or design professionals to come back to the next public hearing with your best effort for some sort of 10-foot by 2 minutes path along Governor's Highway in front of this new development. I don't need comments today, just we'll be listening.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner LeBlanc.
Thank you. I only have a couple of questions here. I know, looking at the plan, you did a pretty good job, I think, with the berm and having trees and all that for site mitigation, but my biggest concern really is mitigation of sound. The whole west side of the building, for the most part, seems like there's truck bays and all. And let's face it, trucks are loud. And it's something that you have that neighborhood just south of the property, and to me it seems quite close. And it's something that I'm looking at this project as kind of a bee's nest. There's a lot of activity going on during a day. I'm sure there's peak hours, and I'm not sure how far into the night this will go on to, but I'm just looking at it as a concerned resident, and to me, it's the sound of that activity going on with all the truck traffic, I think, is the main concern I have. And I'm unsure whether that should be pushed up to the northwest part of that building, or some redesign or that type of thing, or that doesn't suit the building or the needs of the tenant, but it seems like the truck activity is quite close to the neighborhood. And that's my main concern here. Fencing around the property, I'm not sure who the tenant is in this building here, but I'd like to see something better than chain link fence, if not barbed wire, that type of thing. I have no idea who's coming in, but if this project does go forth, I would expect ornamental fencing and something of a good neighbor type of situation against the neighborhood. It's only 2 comments I have right now. I want to hear what the public says in the next hearing, and I'm sure I'm going to have more comments after that. But if you want to address sound, that type of thing, I'd love to hear it. Thank you.
Okay. I have a lot of comments, questions. I'm just going to try to limit it to the ones I want answers next time. I'm not looking for answers now. I would like to get a better idea of the process going forward. I heard that the applicant already has control of the land. I just want to confirm, has it been sold? Will this be a spec building? Will the actual building, if approved, be built and then marketed, or will the building be held off being built until you have a suitable tenant? That's one. I want to understand the timing of the Governor's Highway Route 5 signal, specifically how many seconds it will stay green for traffic on Governor's Highway. I want to understand, I heard we have water from roughly 10 acres dumping into, I believe, 2 36-inch pipes. I think it would be good to know where those pipes end up bringing that water to, just so we know it's not creating an issue someplace else down the line. On your presentation, I noticed some of the renderings had, and the requirement is a 50-foot buffer on the industrial side, 50-foot buffer on the residential side. It looked like the residential side had been cut on some of the renderings. I'm just wondering if that's accurate. Currently on Governor's Highway, and I spent 2 hours walking the project or potential project, and when I was at the site and I came out to Governor's Highway, a tractor trailer from R&L was coming east towards Ellington Road. And I just stood there with my hands up, and he just totally ignored me and blew right by. Shh, please. I have a tough time when I talk, so I appreciate the quietness. Thank you. There is currently 2 signs talking about the ordinance out front, and tractor trailers are not allowed. I'm guessing these signs are maybe 16 by 24. We need a large sign. I'm talking probably 3 by 5 feet to document, to clearly indicate to the public, specifically to truck drivers, that truck traffic is not allowed on Governor Street east of that location. I understand what the police chief is saying about putting a sign at across the street from the employee entrance. I think that signage should be on site. You have the tractor trailers on one side of the building, and by the way, I think it's a really great idea that the tractor trailers are all on the west side of the building. I think that creates a lot of buffer for the residents that are to the east of the building by using the building as a buffer. But I think any signage for left turning, the majority of it, or not the majority, but it should be done on-site in the trucking area or on the start of that access road to definitely show the tractor trailers, you don't come down here. That should be maintained by the applicant, whoever that may be eventually. But the sign on Governor's Highway, going east on Governor's Highway, does need to be much, much larger. And there does need to be police enforcement. And I think we do have to have somebody from the Police Traffic Commission come here and address the issues, because I did see a video on Facebook. It's like you can't help but see them when they come up. And it showed 4 tractor trailers going back and forth on Governor's Highway past the site. And it just seems like we need much more enforcement over there. I'm just wondering also if there's going to be any crossbars to clear the snow off the tractor trailers. I know in some applications in the past, that has been a detail and part of their presentation, because these tractor trailers are going to accumulate snow on the top of them. I know at the old JCPenney warehouse in West Hartford, they had them. I'm not sure if they have them anymore, but that's something I'd like to know also. That's all I have for questions I'm going to ask at this time. Other than one more thing, just to address the residents' concern. Just, I know they said like 70% of the tractor trailer traffic will be between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. 70% of what? What are the exact numbers or accurate numbers to fill in that information? I don't want it tonight, but next meeting. Commissioners, are there any other questions that you want to bring forward to get answers to for the next one? Okay. Then at this time, if staff doesn't have anything else, I'd like a motion to continue the public hearing to our next meeting date.
I move we continue the public hearing to our next meeting date.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
October 26th, for the record.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're still got business to go over here, so if anybody's leaving, if they could leave quietly, we would appreciate it. Thank you very much for all attending. Okay, we have any bonds? I recall some. I really wish they'd fix the sound system. Kilkenny Heights. Yep. Okay. Then we're gonna, thank you for pointing that out, Steve. I'm gonna go into our regular meeting and ask if there's any public participation. If there's anybody from the public who would like to speak on anything this time, if not, hearing and seeing none. We'll move into our application 21-46P, South Windsor Entertainment. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. Oh, I've got one somewhere. Thank you very much. We have our first application, 21-39P, Kilkenny Heights 2, Mannarino Builders. Jeff, is there an updated staff report or anything, or?
There is no additional staff report. We have some recommended approval conditions, but the public hearing was closed. We thought everything was addressed.
Okay. Okay. Sure, if we have a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve application 21-39P. This is Kilkenny Heights 2, and we have 1 through 19 standard approval conditions, except for some that have bonds, which I'll read now. Number 6, this application is subject to the condition of approval of the Inland Wetlands Agency and Conservation Commission, including bonds in the amounts of $20,000 for compliance with erosion and sediment control measures, a bond in the amount of $25,000 for the installation of the storm water structures, and a bond in the amount of $5,000 for plantings within the basin to be held for 3 years. Number 7 is a landscaping bond in the amount of $10,000, which shall be posted prior to the issuance of the last certificate of occupancy. And then number 11 is a liability insurance policy shall be submitted to this commission, naming the town of South Windsor as an insured with a combined single limit for bodily injury and or property damage in the amount of $1 million. What's that? Oh, number 18?
Number 2.
Number 2? I missed that, Steve. Number 2, concrete sidewalks. You want me to read that one? Built to town specifications shall be installed on both sides of Maskell Road, parallel to Abbey Road, and along the southerly side of Maskell Road, perpendicular to Abbey Road, terminating at Abbey Road. The Town Parks and Rec Division agrees to maintain the new sidewalk along the property at 416 Abbey during the winter until such time as the owner sells the property, and will file an agreement to that effect. Oh, then I've got some italicized ones. Yeah. Then we go to number 20. Arborvitae plantings are to be planted in front of the property at 427 Abbey at a location agreed upon between the property owner and developer to minimize automobile light trespass. 21, all conservation easements and open space properties shall be marked in the field with open spaces and conservation easement metal property markers provided by the town to the satisfaction of the environmental planner. 22, in accordance with section C.1.g of the subdivision regulations, a waiver of 25 feet has been granted to allow an open space access of 25 feet. Number 23, dust control measures shall be implemented on the site and watering of the site shall be done on a regular basis. 24, the existing stone wall adjacent to 249 Maskell Road shall remain and protected as a part of the conservation easement on Lot 1. 25, the existing tree line along the northern property boundary shall be protected in the field. Efforts shall be made to preserve as many trees as possible. Any trees to be removed in that area shall be flagged by the developer and subject to the review and approval of town staff. 26, once the access from Abbey Road is established to the extent feasible, all construction traffic shall use that as the primary entrance to the development. And lastly, number 27, the developer shall post wayfinding signage directing the public to the town-owned open space and posting private property where appropriate to indicate the end of the public access for recreational use.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have Commissioner Wagner seconding. Discussion. Anything, commissioners? Commissioner Wagner?
Yeah, I was thinking, should we be requiring signage along the public access easements so that the property owners are protected? Or did I miss that? Is that in here?
I think number 27, covers that.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns, commissioners? Okay, then I'll call the motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Number 2 is postponed. Number 3, application 21-21P, Town of South Windsor, Pleasant Valley School, change order for landscaping. Um, Yep.
That?
Yep,
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
thank you.
For the record, Ben Wheeler, licensed landscape architect in the state of Connecticut, as you all know. I apologize, we've already given your next exercise tonight, but we are projecting again. So feel free to relocate, but I don't think our presentation will take that long on this one. I have with me in the front row is Mr. Jim Barrett from Darmany Rosane Anderson Architects. As you remember, when this application was before you, he is the lead principal from DRA, which is the lead design firm for this project. Behind him, Mr. David Dixon, landscape architect from SLR Consulting, the landscape architect responsible for preparing these plans. And then next to him, Mr. Matthew Montana, as you know, is the chair of the Public Building Commission in town. So as all of you recall, we did get approval from this commission for the new elementary school at Pleasant Valley earlier this year. And as we explained at that point in time, and as you know, going through this being the 4th elementary school now in town, the new elementary school, goes through an exhaustive process through budgeting and estimating and scrutiny to get to this point. Since we were before this commission and received approval, we submitted our final construction plans for the project, at which time another series of construction estimates were completed. 2 independent estimates were done. And unfortunately, at that time, the project was coming in millions of dollars over budget. And this was largely a result of an increase in the cost of construction materials. Just for instance, the previous round of estimates were done in the spring of this year, around March or April. And these estimates were done basically last month. In that time, in that 6-month or so span, steel cost, just the material cost alone, has gone up 40%. So, a huge impact on a project of any magnitude, but especially of this magnitude. So, as we've outlined before, there's a very specific schedule related to this project. And in order to make sure that it stays on that schedule, we needed to go out to bid. And throughout the entire process, it does get scrutinized by the state, and they will not let a project go out to bid unless it is within a reasonable range of the construction estimate. And obviously, this does have a set construction budget as we outlined to you before. As a result of that, then, the design team, and working in concert with the Public Building Commission, the school district administration, went through an extensive value engineering process to bring the project back into an acceptable budget range from the state's mind. And a key goal and directive, certainly from the school administration, was to make sure that that value engineering process identified reductions that did not impact the educational program, or basically the learning environment as a part of the school, making that the highest priority. So as a result of that, the landscaping plan that we presented to you and was approved for this project was one of the items that was a victim of value engineering. In addition to that, there were some concerns brought up by the school's security consultant with the amount of landscaping that was shown on the original plans for 2 reasons. One was visibility from public rights of way and driving through the site, given the climate today, security around school buildings, especially elementary schools. And then also, obviously, all schools these days have a closed circuit video monitoring system, being able to monitor the site basically from all angles. And the concern was that some of the trees, as they grow and mature, would impact some of those sight lines and compromise that security system. And also in the school administration's review, the maintenance department also requests the removal of a few trees as well. So with that, I just want to point out that as a part of this value engineering process, we in the design team were adamant that when the landscaping was looked at, there were certain areas that were not touched. The proposed wetlands mitigation plantings next to the detention basin have not changed. Those are as they were on the original plans. The buffer plantings supplementing the existing trees along the residential properties, those have also remained intact. And also any landscaping that is required from a zoning perspective in and around the parking lots, the landscaped islands, those also remain intact. And so the plan that we're presenting before you still does meet the zoning regulations. So with that introduction, I will turn it over to Mr. Dixon to go over the proposed reductions in more detail. Obviously, we're looking for an affirmative from this commission to move forward with this reduced landscape plan as a part of the project going forward.
Good evening. I'm David Dixon, professional landscape architect with SLR Consulting, Cheshire, Connecticut, 99 Realty Drive. Ben did a great job of describing the concern that we have and the reason that we are back before you tonight. The graphic that you see in front of you indicates, if you look at all the trees, those are what were before you and what you approved. If you take additively all of the trees in all the different colors. What was approved by planning and zoning were approximately 291 trees. As a result of minimizing security requirements, concerns, and value engineering, we are now down to 193. So we have reduced the total count by 98. Proposed number of trees to remain is 193. The trees in green remain. The trees that were in yellow were identified as potential security concerns. And the balance of the trees were selected, I won't say randomly, but they were selected by me in our office in an attempt to not devalue the overall scheme and the site plan. We believe it's still a valid site plan. There is not a lot of shrubbery specifically, and that's one of the reasons is because of the lack of maintenance that we see in a lot of the schools. So one of the things that we didn't have to worry about were shrubs, and those are maintenance problems. But the tree summary is before you, and we will open it up for any questions you may have.
Okay, I'm just going to start off and say your plant schedule, you have the type of tree TI, you have 36 of them quantity, which are green giant, arborvitae. I looked on your plan and the little letters on there, I did not see a single TI on the plan. I'm just hoping you can enlighten me to where those trees are.
Do you have a larger plan by chance? How many do we have proposed? Is that 36?
Oh. Well, 20 on this
20.
plan.
go down to the,
Maybe the other buffer.
I know they're out there somewhere.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, let me zoom in again. Yep, that's where they are. Here's 8 and right
1,
here.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
So there's 8 in there.
Okay.
Oh, and there's 2 more, so there's
18,
20.
19, 20.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a little different view. I think you do have this plan before you, albeit small, and sorry for straining your eyes, but I'll help you out here. So this is the actual landscape plan with the updated plant schedule. It does show 20 TIs, and
So basically,
they're in and around the cafeteria loading area, for screening purposes, not to steal
Yep.
Dave's thunder, but I'm stealing Dave's thunder.
Nope.
right, well, I'm not seeing, okay, and
Yeah.
I'm guessing to the,
Here, I'll zoom in again for you.
those are probably, you see the basketball court? Okay, those are those that you're removing also,
So,
to the left of the
oh,
basketball court.
correct, yes, yeah, the ones that were over here are being removed, were those,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I heard you mention that, well, in red, you have the proposed trees to be removed. In the yellow, you have proposed security to be removed. Security, trees due to security. Then you have proposed trees to remain. I'm not seeing which trees the school, or the maintenance asked to be removed for maintenance purposes. No, those are for security.
Those were the first 4 trees adjacent to the parent parking lot at the drop-off on the west side of the school.
You're gonna have to use your pointer or something.
Right
Yeah,
here,
right there.
Where, Ben? Okay.
right here, yeah. And I believe
Those
that was it, right?
That's it.
So those 4, and those 4 are, oh,
Horn beams.
pardon me? Horn
They're
beams? Okay.
Upright horn beams, yes, sir.
So really, that will leave like 0 vegetation right in front of the school there. Are there gonna be any shrubs or anything? I mean, is, you know, can there be a little flowering shrub or something there instead? I mean, to bring a little life to it?
I mean, I'm sure that we could talk with the committee and see what we could do. I think that in place of the horn beams, there certainly could be something put in there that's small. And the concern here, sometimes when you get in with smaller shrubs that become of any significance in size, it becomes something to hide behind. And
Right, but if you have a small flowering shrub that's
No,
less
that's-
than 2 feet tall.
That's fine. I'm talking about something that goes
No,
back
I know
10
what
to
you're
50 feet.
talking about. We're not talking about the same thing here.
No, you're correct.
What is gonna replace the ABs right in front of the school? I mean, again, at minimum, I'd like to see a small flowering shrub or something. I understand your concern about a tall tree that might block camera angles and stuff, but it can't just be absolutely nothing. I would say for those 7 that we're talking, put put a small flowering shrub there. I'm also concerned about when you come up Ellington Road, I'm sorry, like from the ball field parking lot, and you're driving and you're looking up the hill, what exactly are you going to see for foliage or plant life? It's like that whole view, you're wiping out any plant life in that view, and then you're going to get, you drive 100 yards down the road, you're going to get inundated with trees and everything. It just seems to me like you could at least have a few of these trees remain. I understand you want to cut about 100 trees. And I'd feel much more comfortable if Kevin Foley was here to discuss some of this, because Kevin is very knowledgeable in landscaping. I see somebody, one of the other commissioners has his light on. I'm going to defer to Commissioner LeBlanc.
I just have to ask this easy question. I'm sensing that the scale back of landscaping is due to the rise of construction materials. You're finding, you mentioned steel's 40% higher, that type of thing, but could you elaborate on that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Because you're not even close to construction, all right? So I'm hearing that the cost of steel is going up, and it's one of the reasons why you're cutting back on the landscaping. Am I correct?
I'm sorry, I still can't hear you.
All right.
Yeah, you are correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that, in my opinion, this landscaping should be contingent upon materials upon acquisition. And you didn't even put a shovel in the ground yet, all right? So construction materials tend to roll like a roller coaster depending on supply and demand and, of course, the supply chain. 3/4-inch plywood back in the spring was $90 a sheet. It's back to $28 where it should be. So by the time this construction project gets out of the ground, I'm sensing that some of these materials will come back to where they should be at their fair market price. So what I'm getting at is that you're already cutting back on the landscaping. Is it necessary at this point?
If I may, Jim Barrett with DRA Architects. We are proposing to cut back on landscape. This has been after a very rigorous review of all materials within the construction and all the approaches that we are taking within the construction. So this represents one relatively small component of the value engineering, but a significant component in that everything contributes. The pricing, what we're really targeting is the likelihood of receiving bidding in early November, and we will not see fluctuation beyond that. Beyond bid date, those prices will be locked, and so we will not have the benefit of 6 months to 12 months of the cycle working its way through. It's the immediacy of the timing of the bid that we're upon. That's the reason why we're in front of you this evening, and we're very respectful of the fact that we have an approved plan, but this has been across every aspect of the project.
So the construction contracts are already set in place with the pricing and everything? That's already cast in stone?
Our construction documentation is complete. We have been able to receive our final sets of estimates, which we use to identify where we are relative to our budgetary constraints for the overall project. As Ben indicated at the outset, what was our pricing in the spring has significantly changed over that time period, and it's a much tighter time period. Actually, it was through July 30, when we actually had our final estimates in hand. And with those in hand, we have seen a significant uptick in costs, projected, obviously.
Right, it's projected, but that could also go the other way. That's why I'm reluctant to approve something like this as a cutback in the project, and next year when the prices fall, it's a win-win on the other end.
Again, the bidding will, if stays on schedule, by the end of the year, the construction activities will begin. There will be no fluctuation in cost to the project beyond that point. The numbers will lock. There'll be a bid in hand, and those numbers will not change. So we will not have 6 months to a year to see fluctuation as you're suggesting.
All right, I'm just looking at it from another end. I work in construction every day, so I'm looking at this from, well, different contract types and all that. So I'm unsure whether this has actually been on in construction yet and all that, and their price is locked in. I mean, I deal with construction, and right now we have a hard time getting roofing products because they're sky high right now. So we advertise a project in March.
Yep.
You probably get a lower price because the supply chain is supposed to come back.
Excuse me, Michael. If we could, just for a minute. Steve,
I move we extend the meeting till no later than 10 o'clock.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
I was trying to get this right. Like I said, I deal with these type of things, and I haven't seen the project, I haven't seen the details of the bids and all that type of thing, so I'm not
Understood.
sure where it's heading, but these would be concerns and questions I would raise. So I've done estimating, I've done it all,
To
so.
be clear, we're beyond estimation. We have finalized plans. They're ready to go out to bid. We cannot move forward to bid, as been indicated at the outset, until the state authorizes the ability for us to go out to bid. We can only do that if we can demonstrate that we can value engineer the project to a number which approximates what our original target number was.
Understood.
And that's what we're in the midst of.
So to cap my comment, what I would do with something like this is that I'd have it contingent upon the final price. Had the final price come in where it should be, then I would expect the proper landscaping to be done as originally designed and not cut it back and improve it at this point.
So what I'm hearing from you, Michael, is it sounds to me like you're suggesting that this landscaping be put in as an add-alt to the project, and just
Correct.
to confirm whether or not
That's
this is actually needed. Does that sound accurate?
correct. Right, if you're saying what you're saying and the prices stay high, I get it, believe me. But if the market changes, we shouldn't approve this right now as being solid. It should be contingent.
We understand the position, and we could act in that fashion in terms of creating an ad alternate package. So it's such that if on bid day we stand in a position where we have the monies available, we could begin, bringing these back.
Correct.
Understood.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Steve, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, any provision like that should not address the yellow ones, which are security related. How much is the cost saving of these changes?
The approximate cost changing of these was about $100,000.
Okay.
So that's only $100 per tree, roughly? Is that
1,000.
Probably about 150 a tree.
100,000, 100 trees, $1,000 a tree? Okay. Okay. I just want to reiterate, the 3 that are in front of the building that are in yellow, I would like to see a flowering shrub there, you know, like I said, 2 feet tall or whatever. But I would rather not see it totally blank. Also, the island in front of the parent drop-offs or whatever, not really parent drop-offs, but the crosswalks. I think it would be important to have 4 flowering shrubs there also.
Mr. Chair, I think they can pick varieties that will not grow tall. I forget what the technical term is, but they're delimited or something in how high they grow. It's just a matter of what variety is picked.
Right. I agree with that. And again, my concern about the view from somebody coming up Ellington Road and seeing really no shrubbery on the, I believe that's the south side of the building. And then all of a sudden you get into a lot of trees. It seems so out of balance.
Yes. So one possibility, those that are green in front of the building, we may be able to take 3 or 4 of those and distribute them along that walkway as a possibility to balance the site further as you viewed from Ellington Road.
If you don't mind turning around, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Like, for instance, maybe these 3 here that are in green currently, we could move down to change 3 of these to be in green, you know, or somewhere along in here, spaced along in here in the base bid. So that if the ad alternate is not enacted, so that to alleviate your concern about the openness of this area, at least there would be a few trees included in the base bid. Would that satisfy your concern?
Yeah, if possible, I'd like to see them up a little bit in this area just to break it up some. If that's
Understood.
okay. Okay. Now, what we're agreeing to, or to move this forward, I know there's the potential that the bids still come in over budget, and then I hope we won't be repeating this activity. Okay. So, commissioners, I believe we just need a motion that encompasses what we've talked about. To the best of our ability.
I move that we approve the reduction in, the proposed reduction in landscaping, number of trees, and with the sizes proposed, with the applicant expected to distribute trees to provide a more balanced picture, and replace the 3 trees on the driveway next to the school and the 4 trees on the island next to parent parking with shrubs, low shrubs that do not grow to result in a sightline problem. I think that was a sentence.
I would appreciate if those were flowering shrubs.
Flowering shrubs. Okay.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, question, comments?
Yeah, I still want to add in regarding being over budget.
Yep,
I
so
still
the
want a
add-all,
contingency on this.
Then add all to put in as many trees above that number as possible.
well, the add-all would be to include the original plan.
Okay, I
Or
accept that.
the difference from this green plan to the original plan, minus the 7 security and the other identified yellow foliage. So you're good with that?
Yes.
And who's our second? Alan, you're good with that? Okay. So, having just said that, I'll call it to a vote. All those in favor of the change, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Good luck.
Good time.
Okay. We have the discussion regarding the potential moratoriums, cannabis retail and residential housing, and zoning regulation updates, accessory apartments. Jeff, do you have anything on that?
Michelle left me a couple of notes as a draft for residential moratorium, possible moratorium on retail cannabis. She has a note here for a special meeting proposed on November 16th.
Yep.
To discuss these in more depth.
Okay, and just to make the commission aware, we have sent the proposed moratoriums to CROG for review. I think we can deal with this more at our next meeting. I just want to make everybody aware that Michelle had to take a phone call at 9 p.m. and I was hoping she'd be back by now, but I totally understand. So at this point, Commissioner Dexter.
I just want to ask, is the 11/16 special meeting a public hearing for the cannabis moratorium, or what's the intention?
Caitlin, is that the way it would be proposed?
We can't hear you, Caitlin.
Right, so there were three possible amendments, one for a moratorium on cannabis, one for a moratorium on single-family subdivision, and then clarifications on accessory and in-law apartments, or changes, I guess, to reflect the new laws.
Because Michelle put some text amendment together for us to look
Yes,
at.
do you have those, or no?
We have that.
Okay.
She gave them to us.
Yeah, so that's what will be discussed at that meeting, and it sounds like it'll be a public hearing.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, just wanted to check.
So just reaching out to the commissioners, the ones that are here, do you know if you're available on that date already?
I'm gonna look at my calendar.
Yeah, please.
November 16th.
This was the 16th, right?
Yes, the 16th between your regular scheduled meetings.
Actually, the
9th
it would be the 9th, the 16th, 23rd, we would be off for the Thanksgiving week. I'm sorry, yeah, Thanksgiving week, and then we would have a meeting, I believe, on the 30th.
Okay, right.
So let me just say, with regard to the housing moratorium, I've expressed my opinion in the past, but I would like to know exactly, if we approve that, what are the sections that need revisions? And you don't have to answer that now, but at that meeting, I'd like to have a little more specificity about why we're doing it, and, you know, in terms of what's wrong with our current regulations.
Yeah,
'Cause right now, I've still, you know, told you that I'm against doing that, so
Yep.
if you're going to convince me, I'm going to need a lot more details.
okay. That'll be part of the public hearing. So the consensus is we're going to move forward with the November 16th meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll get that agenda out. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonds. James Bonds. Okay, does everybody have the memorandum on the bonds? And if somebody would like to jump in, Michael?
All right.
You can start with that bond setting.
Subdivision bond? Okay, bond setting. That's the whole thing. Okay. All right, bond setting. Engineering recommends a bond in the amount of $28,400 for public improvements associated with application 21-29P. That's the Davis re-subdivision. Planning
Okay.
Department.
And we'll do these individually because they're separate projects.
Okay.
So I'll take that, Michael, you made that as a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, next up, the Planning Department recommends a bond in the amount of $10,000 for erosion and sedimentation measures associated with application 21-47P, Revolutions Outside Multipurpose Fields at 195 Governor's Highway.
Okay, we have a motion to set the bond. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes.
All right. Planning Department recommends a bond in the amount of $25,000 for the replacement of street trees for application 17-04P, Estates at South Windsor.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Jeff, just remind us, I believe that is the Toll Brothers project?
It is a Toll Brothers project. So this was included in their subdivision bonds, which you'll see come up next. We're separating it out so we can hold this for the street trees. There's many, many street trees out there that need to be replaced.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, would somebody else like to do the subdivision bonds?
Sure.
Okay, Steve?
I move we approve for application 17-04P Estates at South Windsor Phase 1 and Phase 2, reduction in bonds. The first Phase 1 bond, $198,000, reduction by $34,000 with a balance of $164,000. In Phase 2, bond of $110,000, reduced by $18,000 with a balance of $92,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jeff, are those down to maintenance balances or?
That is maintenance level for those bonds, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes.
Move we approve for application 21-56P Vintage Hills 2.
20-56P?
Isn't that what I said? Oh, 20-56P in any case. A bond in the amount of $228,515, a reduction of $135,215, leaving a balance of $93,300.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jeff, again, is that?
That is not the maintenance level. That's
Okay.
just a reduction. He has to actually set that bond now because he wants to pull building permits.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Erosion and sedimentation bonds. Alan, would you like to take a shot?
Will do.
Okay?
1942 New Way Tobacco Solar Farm of amount of 5,000, a reduction of 5,000, a balance of 0. 1945P New Way Tobacco Company amount of 2,000, reduction 2,000, a balance of 0. 1844P of 359 Ellington Road ENS of 25,000 for an amount, reduction 25,000, balance of 0. And 18444P, is that a typo or is that actually
44.
Okay, 44P, 359 Ellington Road Stormwater, $50,000 amount, and a reduction of 50,000 and a balance of 0.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Minutes, 9:14. I had a bunch of type changes, just missing a few words here and there. But on page 5, I just wanted to clarify where the bottom 3 lines of the page, Chairman Pasconis explained if they opted out, then recommendations would need to be brought to the town council, where they would need a 2/3 majority vote. I believe when we change our regulation like that, I think we might also need a 2/3 vote. But
I'm not sure.
yeah. I just wanted have Michelle check on that.
Yeah, we'll check that and we'll clarify it in the final version.
Yep. And on the 6th page, about 4 paragraphs up from the bottom, the wording doesn't sound correct. Chairman Pasconis clarified that a moratorium would not allow consent of sale. Yeah, and I'll give you this, and we can check that out. I just want to make sure that it's correct. Majority of the commission, okay. Just, again, a couple words that were left out. Now, we could, I'll give you an example of some of the words on page 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph down, it says, Chairman Pasconis commented that the commission could choose to opt out for 1 year and change regulations in that time frame, not from, but a decision would need to be made immediately one way or another. The next paragraph, Michelle Light commented that the largest enforcement issue is people buying a home with an existing, and get rid of the in-law, in-law and having to opt out in the town. Oh, in-law apartment. In-law apartment. I got that marked here for you, Caitlin. But it's just little things like that. Page 6, again, 2nd paragraph down, like 2nd sentence, for example, Chairman Pasconis feels that, and get rid of the next word, feels. So feels that a homeowner should still live in one of the units. And 5 paragraphs down from the top of that same page, Chairman Pascone summarized that it is the consensus of the commission, not, it is the consensus. Okay. Is everybody agreeable to changing with those changes? Okay, so we'll adopt them with those changes. Thank you. Okay, what else we got? Minutes, old business. Jeff, anything she wanted to talk about old business? Or,
Not that I see here, no.
okay. We've got a couple applications we're officially receiving tonight. Other than that, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Motion we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.